Welcome, everybody. We're going to go back on the record here with Bianary. We did some great shows in the past. We're going to talk today. My name is Gavin. We're going to talk today about the connection between the Bank of International Settlements project Mandela, which they've now released, and the Mandela upgrade with BSV blockchain announcement, and the involvement of Terranode, I guess, or the Metanet connection from a technical side, and he's done an analysis on it, and we're gonna go through it today.
It seems like if Craig's not going to go to jail because it's obvious that he's not in contempt of court because he's not claiming to be Satoshi in the next case, then isn't this a good thing that Craig is not Satoshi in law and we can just go back to
It is a good
competing?
thing.
Like I'm kind of over all this BS and all this cognitive dissonance from the other side because we're actually innovating the world and we can see their bullshit. We can see through it. It's not cleverly hidden. They're not they're not operating on such this high level. And evidenced by the fact that the technology they're protecting is complete dog shit. Like like we should just be competing and we should just be showing people what the tools can do. So maybe, it obviously we want to have fair trials and things like that, but the fairest trial is supply and demand. The fairest trial is the market. And, we're gonna go and compete and we're gonna win. There's there's really no way around that. And that's what I see in the Project Mandela report, which is, comically obvious that they're talking about a world-changing technology and what are they alluding to here? It's That's sort of where I see. I just we ought to just get out of this rat race with these people because they obviously don't know what's going on. They're not even covering their tracks. It's not like they're playing 5D chess here. Um, it's pretty sloppy. And then when you point it out, they get butt hurt. So it seems like these guys really aren't worth our time. We've got bigger fish to fry.
Yeah, so here's the announcement back on May 9th. They announced the Mandela upgrade. Now, now can you take us through what this is, what this whole overlay thing, overlay node, and what is this actually about? And am I looking at the right page
Yeah,
here?
this is the right page, and it,
Okay.
it kind of annoys me that there's nothing I dislike more than just shit chat GPT images and that that should be a little bit higher priority. But what you're looking at is the idea of what a Mandela network could look like with the center being the Bitcoin nodes. And then as you scale outwards, you go into overlay networks and then ultimately the peer-to-peer SPV wallet infrastructure. So why don't we go over to the Project Mandela, which, coincidentally has the same name. Um, and we can look at the way that they want to design this thing, or not want to, the way that they are looking to design or have designed.
All right, so here's their this is the Bank of International Settlements on October 28th, 2024. And then they have this 73-page report here, which is going into it in detail. So let's scale this up. All right. So that's just page one. It's 73 pages. What would you like me to go to look at?
Yeah, so just look at this front page here. That's the Mandela network. So that image is is the Mandela that scales out from the center. And what Bitcoin was designed to be was the semi-complete ring or the almost perfectly complete network where all data can move across the world in less than two hops. And and that's what the Bitcoin nodes were incentivized to do. We're not talking about Raspberry Pis connecting to each other peer to peer. We're talking about server farms that are incentivized to lay new fiber optic cables across the ocean. That's what we're talking about. We're not talking about, the little stuff. When you scale it outward from that, super dense bundle in the center, you get this Mandela network where, okay, now these smaller nodes on the outside can connect and all of it routes back to the center of the world, which is the Mandala, which is, this circular, super dense, small world network that I've described in the past as Metanet, and ultimately Bitcoin is in the center. It's Bitcoin being the network of nodes that operate the timestamp server. That's what it's about. Now, the actual coins, they live on the edges. And so we can go down to the Project Mandela. Let's go down to their, I think they've got a specification for how it's designed. Um, I don't know which page, but we can look in the, if you want to click through here. It's probably section 2, maybe 3.
Cross-border payments, they introduce uncertain.
The main thing we want to look at is how their architecture, yeah, solution design is section 3.
Solution design.
Yeah. So as
This
you can
section
see here,
describes the solution design of the Mandela POC. POC, what's that? POC.
proof of concept,
Proof of concept based upon three core components. The P2P, is that peer to peer?
peer to peer.
Oh, peer to peer messaging system, the rules engine, and the proof engine. All right.
Right. So, they say a lot of words and they keep it very, very abstract, but what they're talking about is exactly what BSVA is talking about with their Mandela upgrade. Their Mandela upgrade has 3 key components. There is a SPV section, which is a peer-to-peer communication network on the edges of the network.
Here's the network for the BSVA. We got
Yeah.
understanding the new upgrade. Core. So take me for the first one. A core node network with Terranode.
Terranode is the proof engine, the proof of work engine. That's that's what it is. So all it is, I mean, it's nothing different than, what we've been using in the past. They just separated the services so that each service can scale independently. So if you need more throughput somewhere, you can put more computers there rather than what they call the monolithic BSV node software that you couldn't separate out and scale in that way. That's what allows them to achieve, this level of transactions per second. But it also allows it. It's a whole new way of building the architecture. And so when you build the node in this way, you have to strip out everything that isn't just proof. So you're just proving that validation, that transaction is correct. That's why you have to separate these things into the 3 components. So you have the proof engine in Terranode, and it is extremely good at proving that a transaction is valid and then putting it on chain in a proof of work. Terranode is feeding the Merkle roots to the in the block headers to the hashers, and we are proving that these transactions are correct and then locking them in proof of work. Then you move down to the
Overlay
overlay
services
services.
and dedicated overlay networks.
So Project Mandela calls these a rules engine, and that's exactly what they are. It is a rules engine. And basically, at a high level, a overlay network is a tracking system for transaction outputs, but it also is a smart contracting engine. So on the edges, you're doing smart contracts in the outputs of all these transactions, which somewhere in this
Here we
document
go. Rules engine.
they actually mention they actually mention the word output, which is interesting because they allude to Ethereum quite a bit in here, but
He
when they
mentions
actually
Ethereum a lot. Why do they keep talking about Ethereum? What's the relation?
they want to confuse you. Um,
Can Ethereum do any of this?
no,
Now, first, before you just say that, what is your qualifications to say that? Because I know that a lot of people say, "Well, how do you know?"
Yeah. Well, the
Have you ever heard of it?
qualification is
What
that
is your
they explain how this system works.
well, you're didn't you
And
first before you learned about Bitcoin, you were working on Ethereum, or what was your first exposure
yeah, I
again?
was I was working on Ethereum before I got into Bitcoin because, you go through. I think a lot of us went through the cycles. We were like, "Oh, Bitcoin's cool. That seems like it's perfect." And then, we use BTC and that doesn't work. And then we're like, "Okay, well, crap. Well, what's next?" And so a lot of these Turing complete blockchains are are basically just more complicated versions of what Bitcoin was to start. And so the more complicated it gets, the more things you have to deal with. And what this proof of concept is telling you is that this is the simplest way to make a compliant, globally scalable transactional network for international settlements. So how is that designed? Well, it's designed with a peer-to-peer um, network on the edges that funnels
Here's the
data
peer-to-peer
into a
messaging system.
right? And that funnels data into a rules engine, which is an overlay. And
Into the rules engine.
yep, all that data gets funneled into the rules engine. And then in within that rules engine, you
Binary.
transact
I'm
and
sorry to
then
interrupt you, but it says binary decisions, and I noticed that your thing is called binary. What is this? What is binary? It talks
binary
about
is,
here.
one or zero. So on the output side, it supports binary decisions or notifications. So it's basically just a state machine saying that this is true, this is false, this is true, this is false. Um, so as you can see on the output side, let's talk about that. And the reason I just said immediately no to Ethereum is because they're talking about outputs, transaction outputs. And the reason for that is because Ethereum can't scale because you cannot run the the rules engine in parallel to each other. The only way you can do that is with a UTXO model, which is a Bitcoin model. So
As
whenever they say
Ethereum
outputs,
virtual
that's what they're
machine.
talking about. They're talking about parallel smart contracting. And that is handled within the rules engine. That's handled within the overlay. And that overlay then sends the proof of these transactions from the peer-to-peer messaging system that are constrained by the rules of the overlay to the proof engine to be verified on chain. Now they do mention on chain in this report quite a bit. So it's obvious that this is a blockchain. So then you ask the question, what blockchain is designed with these three components? Well, it just so happens to be the one that announced the Mandela upgrade. Like, it's not like I said, this isn't rocket science where, they're telling you it's pretty obvious. Hey, we have a network that operates as a Mandela network where everything scales out from the center small world and we can do a lot of transactions a second and it's super efficient and it is constructed out of three components: a peer-to-peer messaging system, a rules engine, and a proof engine.
Okay, what is in it now? The last part here of this upgrade here, they're saying is the SPV usage, and there's overlay, and then SPV usage at the edge of the network with SPV wallets. Can you describe that?
Yeah, so SPV, and they actually mentioned this a little bit. Basically, the edge nodes are getting a small amount of data from the proof engine to prove that they have um, the right transactional data, which is simplified payment verification using the Merkle path and Merkle roots from the proof engine or the blockchain. So basically, you're proving that a transaction has happened on the edges without having to run a full node. And that's what BTC doesn't understand. They don't actually care about scale. They want you to run a full node on your Raspberry Pi, and they're going to call that decentralized. It doesn't make any sense because we're actually talking about real world use cases. from the Bank of International Settlements. They want something that only BSV can provide, and they have announced it to the world explicitly.
So
We, yeah,
here's the
continue.
chart. All right, does this make any sense to you what I'm showing right now about their Mandela solution design?
Yeah, it. I haven't really gotten into this um into this exact diagram, but it seems pretty simple. There, you've got the P2P messaging systems that have data associated with the previous transactions that they've been involved with. They're constrained to use that data within specific business logic. When that business logic is is valid, then they can actually send it to the proof engine where it proves that that transaction is valid. It follows the rules of that particular overlay, and the general network at the base, which is the Bitcoin network, and the proof is generated, and then it is repropagated outward to the the peer-to-peer messaging system, which basically says, okay, now we've got a new starting point. They don't need to. The peer-to-peer messaging network holds all their own data, so they know what they've done in the past. All they need to do is prove from the proof engine that that happened to someone else, and they do that with the Merkle root from their transactions on chain. It,
So
I
they
mean, it's
call this the Mandela node at the originating bank. So this is the, let's say, the central bank. Then you've got over here the beneficiary bank. They've also got a Mandela node.
so the Mandela node is more like an overlay node. They don't. The reason they call it that is because it's not a Bitcoin node. It could be, I guess. It could be, but more likely it's an overlay node that is enforcing the business logic and connecting. So the reason it's called a Mandela network is because it's fractal in nature. So you have,
Fractal?
yeah, it's a fractal design. It scales within itself. So you've got the central network that creates this super dense small world network where everything is, 2 hops away from each other. And then on top of that, you've got the overlay networks that eventually, you know, mimic that same system. And and that's why it's called a Mandela network. It's got symmetry. It's fractal in nature. It scales on itself, and that's what allows it to do the things that they want it to do in complete compliance. Another thing. I mean, that's the real smoking gun here. What's the
Compliance.
only compliant network in existence? You can't use
What
Ethereum
makes it compliant?
ICO. Um, Number one, the network has to be a commodified network. So, um, you and I know that that's only the original Bitcoin protocol. And the reason for that is because there's no
Well, Gary
central starting
Gensler
point.
knows that too.
Yeah, everyone knows that. And that's why it's so so obvious when these people a lot of these guys are standing directly in front of innovation for their own personal gains, but what they know how big a deal this stuff is. And so I really don't understand their motive other than maybe just, riches. And Michael Saylor has explained that as well. He's like, currency isn't expensive. Those are his exact words. He said currency isn't expensive. That's why they don't want Bitcoin to be peer-to-peer electronic cash because it's not expensive. And maybe that's the only reason. And that's pretty embarrassing, but they're going to keep embarrassing themselves. Um, and that's really not our problem because we have the actual solutions, and we're innovating on it, and we're actually giving people freedom, and we're giving them scale, and we're giving them efficiency. And that's what it's actually about. It's not about, holding something that's expensive and, you know, it's like it's like David and Goliath, but these people are just staring at the rock instead of putting it in the sling. They're just they're just petting it. It's so cute. It's so nice. And maybe one day if I tell enough people that I was David and I had this rock, maybe they'll believe that I slayed Goliath. No, you have to freaking throw the rock. Like you need to use or else nothing happened. Um, I don't know. Maybe that's not the best analogy, but like I said, we gotta we gotta just start innovating. We just gotta start competing because the world needs this knowledge. The world needs the engineers, the innovators, and and it all happens on on the Mandela network.
So here's where it says the with the WCBDC integration required a special policy wrap design to facilitate proof verification and programmable on-chain compliance
Hmm.
as described in 5.1. On-chain compliance.
Yeah. And what's interesting is that I think if you go up to the top, you'll you'll see that they define what WCBDC means. And
WCBDC.
I think a lot of people thought that it was like it meant wrapped, like they would say on Ethereum, but I don't actually believe that it
Here we go.
means that.
It says wholesale central bank digital currency.
Yeah, so that's kind of this is a little clever wordplay. I think they
Wholesale.
did that on purpose because that's how Ethereum does I mean, they mention Ethereum quite a bit in this, and they say all these different things. Um, and then of course they call a WCBDC. It's just it's just added confusion in my opinion. Not that this is like meant to confuse people. It's pretty clear. All of the information is public and no one's really hiding anything. I
What about
think
this zero knowledge proof stuff here? Talks about layer two blockchains based upon zero knowledge proofs. Any comments on this ZK Stark stuff?
yeah, so they want to do everything with zero knowledge proofs, and that's fine. BSV supports that with Opcat. Now, as far as other blockchains, you've got to they use it for layer two scaling. And of course, you could do that on Bitcoin as well. You could do a layer two roll up on Bitcoin and scale the transactional throughput to, I mean, billions, but we don't actually need that. On you can scale it on the layer one and then just use the zero knowledge proofs on layer one with with the hashing and the compute and all that compute happens inside of the rules engine. And that's what I mean by this thing scales in a fractal. So you've got massive computers working at the center of the proof engine. Then you've got more massive computers doing these proofs, these zero knowledge proofs within the rules engine, proving that
But
a certain
to
transaction happened and
so like to a novice, I mean, I think that this whole layer two thing is glazed over, right? So like, oh, it sounds nice, verifiable, publicly verified as layer two. That sounds nice. What's wrong with that? I mean, is that a line in the sand in going forward? I mean, I don't know. I before is that a
they only matter if you cannot actually prove things. You can't prove every transaction on the layer one. So in Ethereum world, they're necessary because otherwise fees would be, you know, I've paid $150 to mint a worthless NFT, like
right?
that's
But are layer twos secure? I mean, do they? What is the whole point of these layer twos? I mean, isn't that what Lightning Network is? Layer two?
yeah, Lightning Network's a layer two. It's all about scale for them, and they all have inherent flaws, design flaws. But most importantly, they just splinter liquidity in markets. And that's why you want a rules engine rather than a layer two. And so you can fence a use case within a rules engine or an overlay. But the layer one proof engine has the ability to actually hold all of the proof and for every transaction rather than what these layer twos do is they do a bunch of zero knowledge proofs on transactions that happened on that isolated network. Then they roll it up into one packet and then send it down to the blockchain. And the blockchain says, okay, all that data was there. I mean, that doesn't really do anything. Maybe that's an oversimplification. I haven't looked into it in a while, but I'm pretty sure that's how it works. And it really doesn't do anything. It's like me, writing up a big old email and then to sending it to a bunch of people, and then we send it to the blockchain and we say, okay, well, there's the proof that all of that happened. Okay, maybe that happened, or maybe we just faked it. Who really cares? Um,
What about
Everything needs to
using,
happen on layer one.
right? Doesn't that I had this call with DXS the other day, and people could listen to it on my X. I haven't posted it on YouTube yet, but it's DXS is a futures trading exchange, not an exchange. They actually trade the futures bets
Mm.
on assets. Have you heard about them?
No, I haven't.
Yeah. So they, DXS, they, is it DXS? Yeah, DXS app. Here it is. So these guys, very interesting concept. They do, so you can bet on futures, and it's a legal concept that was came up, I don't know, 20, 30 years ago. They're not actually doing an exchange. It's just betting on futures.
Mm.
So anyways, in order for them to stay compliant, what they decided, at least their legal team, is that they had to, one, it was not optional. They had no option of custodying anything because it
Mm.
was too risky. If they're custodying these trades, they could be liable for all this stuff and these bets. So what they decided to do was do like a full investigation and like how the best way to do it. Of course, they started with Ethereum, they started with XRP. None of those worked. Then they got to Bitcoin, and they realized that they could do it on Bitcoin using Bitcoin SV. And what they found was that they could do it all on chain and not custody anything. And what they looked into was once had ordinals, and they looked into, I guess, tokenized, and they looked into something that was called Stas protocol. And they decided after meeting with Bennett Senti that Stas was the best way for them to move forward. And so they built their whole protocol using Stas protocol, which is using sats, all
Yeah.
on chain with smart contracts, apparently, on the bets. So they have no custody of the assets. Does that make any sense to you?
Yeah, I've looked into, I'll probably be using, I believe it's called Stas. It's so the actual inventor, I think his name is Stas, and then they created an acronym. It's like Satoshi. Oh geez, I don't know what it is.
How do
Uh,
you spell it? Stas, STSS.
S Stas, Stas. I got
I
to
haven't
meet
been able to
Stas.
find it. It's not. Oh, well, here it is. Stas protocol.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's created by Vionex, um, who have done a lot of really cool things. And yeah, Stas is great, and that's what allows you to use overlay networks. So when you've got to index things on a network that does a million transactions a second plus, it gets really, really hard. And so that's why this Mandela upgrade is so important, and that's why it's taken so long and all these different things is because you really have to re-architect how you use the network because at scale you run into big problems. But Stas understands that, and so they've built a protocol where you basically just attach data to the Satoshi and then the Satoshi trades. You don't want to make a Satoshi unspendable, which is what protocols like Tokenized do, because then you have to keep a log of all of those tokens rather than the miners having to, because the miners will just prune. If you look at the white paper, the miners will just prune unspendable transactions, and you won't have access. They won't serve them to you. So it gets a little bit more complicated. But
Well,
Stas
apparently
is a really good.
they've somehow done a stable coin.
Yeah, you can tokenize anything on this. That's that's what's amazing. And actually, I've been thinking about this a lot as far as, when you start tokenizing things on the Satoshi, I wonder how that affects the actual market cap of the network because, conceivably a Satoshi could be worth a house, if you tokenized a house on that one Satoshi. So then is really the Bitcoin um the Bitcoin market cap, like, is it actually just how much all those Satoshis are worth, or, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's gonna get weird. I don't think that um, people really understand what what this stuff is really, how you value it, because it's so useful. It's like, how do you value an iPhone? Okay, you paid a price for it. It's the marginal cost to make it, but the value of it, like, people can make millions using that iPhone. So it's gonna it's gonna be a very interesting thing. But that's what BTC people don't understand, is they just think that, oh, the market cap of the network is just how much my Bitcoin is worth. Well, no. If you could use it, maybe it'd be way more. Maybe it'd be a lot deeper. And I think that if Satoshi were around right now, I think that's what he would be echoing. He would say, use it. If it's digital oil, build an engine and go make stuff.
Yeah. Well, Stas protocol, Stas token. So that is how they're doing it, apparently using sats. And so back to the Project Mandela upgrade. It looks like, you're saying there's correlations here potentially. Are you just saying that, or do you think that you're actually, I mean, are you actually seeing that in the paper here? I mean, is
I
it
mean, I feel I'll let, whoever, if whatever anyone thinks after what I've just presented, whatever they think. I
write it in
mean,
the comments, or we'll do a video on it,
yeah,
because
whatever you
now
say.
now I did ask BSV blockchain and there's no comment. So they're not allowed, either not commenting, or not
Yeah,
allowed
and
to, or so.
Mandela Network, that's not like that rare of a name. Um, People use it. It's been described before, but they, you know, the architecture is strikingly similar, and the name is the same. So you can you can do with that what you will. Um, I'm not making my bets differently because of it or whatever. Um, you know, the truth is the truth regardless, but I just thought it was interesting. And I also thought that a lot of people don't really understand how the Mandela upgrade actually behaves on Bitcoin, and why it behaves the way it behaves. So I hope that I've done it, at least a little bit of a job to help remedy that. I don't know if you've got any more questions for me on that.
Well, let me just share this as well. I think this is rather interesting for people to take a look at. Check this out. This is the Enchain site talking about how this is back in 2012, 2022. What is the CBDC? So 2 years ago, talking about CBDC bank currency and cash, and it's talking about the European Bank president. And now it's describing all this stuff because of the patents surrounding these CBDCs.
Mm.
Common misunderstanding, short history of CBDCs. Now, at InChain, we are working with central banks to research and design a truly more resilient, trusted, and inclusive modern economy, securing the livelihoods and prosperity of citizens for generations to come. Interested in learning more about CBDCs? Download this playbook and our masterclass here. So you can learn more about it here. This was from 2 years ago. And now, 2 years later, this paper comes out, Project Mandela. Now that's that right there you're saying is a Mandela network on that image.
Yeah, the Mandela, going back to like um ancient times and Buddhist and Hindu cultures, the Mandela has been um a symbol of the divine, the mind, the internal self, natural progression, time, and and that's what this image represents. And there's a lot of different ways that they're drawn throughout history, but a Mandela network is an organically um, it's a biomimicked system, and that comes from deep symbolism and what a Mandela is historically and spiritually, but it also comes from the actual geometry and you know the patterns and the fractal nature that we see in our lives and in nature. So that's why this thing is so important, and that's why it got that name. It's not just an arbitrary name. It means something, and it means that this is this is the future of networks. This is how people connect because it's how people have connected for centuries. Um, we radiate outwards and we connect on the edges, but in the center we have this deeply competitive um, system. Each day we're all trying to get better than we were yesterday. And it's not that it's not that we're attacking each other, it's that we're honest with ourselves. And I mean, extrapolate that out to how Bitcoin works. It's it's the same. And that's why it's called a Mandela network. And that's the symbolism behind it.
I mean, it seems like a freaking giant, dude. I mean, I'm just kind of looking at it from a different perspective. I know that if you're looking at this from a monetary side or the if you look at the markets, then yeah, BTC is a giant with what trillions of a market cap. I could see that. But when I'm looking at this on more of a, I guess in your technical, from your technical view, and then also the legal view, it's like you've got this giant monstrosity called Enchain, and they're just like sitting over there, this behemoth with all these patents over the industry. I mean, it's a patent fortress of a early patent fortress. I don't care what you say. Patents are huge, man, on this stuff, especially with CBDCs. They're this giant thing. It's like this immutable force. And then the Mandela upgrade with Terranode. This Terranode thing is a big deal. Now you mentioned earlier that Terranode people don't understand Terranode. So can you talk about why people like that you mentioned earlier don't understand this thing? They talk
Yeah,
about
I
it.
think I think a lot of people think that this is like some network fork or something is new,
Fork. Yeah.
but it's not that. Um,
Is it a fork? Are they going to create a new token?
No, it's all it is. So, like, I've watched a little bit of your interviews with Jack Pitts. I think he's a great guy, and he's got a great analogy of the railroad tracks. Um, the tracks are the same. Terranode is just a superpowered locomotive. And because of that, we have to change, our switching systems, and we have to change the logistics of getting the things on the train. And that's what it is. It's like, okay, now we've got a super fast locomotive. The same things that we were doing before don't really work. The rails are the same. We're not changing any of that stuff. Um, this isn't a new network. Everything stays where it is. There's no new coins. There's still a 21 million cap. Um, the network rules are the same, but now we've got a super fast locomotive at the center of this thing. And because of that, we have to change the way that the system works a little bit. Um, and maybe I didn't even say that correctly. We have to change the way that we operate the system from um, from a logistics standpoint.
This
So
is the new
that's
Terranode dashboard here, apparently.
yeah, it's not a fork, it's not a new network. It's just a different way of validating the transactions, and it's super fast. And because it's super fast, we have to make new things like overlays and SPV wallets that work with it. And so this is a massive coordinated effort called the Mandela upgrade, and it's not done, but as it scales out, you're going to see a, a very impressive behemoth of a machine emerge that allows people to transact freely, securely, and with no friction.
Yeah. The global Teranode network supports specialized networks, enables millions of transactions a second, scalable with no built-in transaction limits. Is anybody else doing this? Any other of these hobby blockchains or tokens?
No, no one is doing this, and no one's doing it with proof of work either. That's the most important part of all this, and we've talked a little bit about that in the past with just how important the actual proof of work mechanism is. It's irreplaceable. You can't get rid of it. So if it's not on proof of work, then you know you're in trouble. Then if you can't scale unboundedly on a proof of work system, then you're really in trouble.
I see.
So
So, well, with Bank of International Settlements, they're talking about Ethereum, and that's proof of work, right? Proof of stake.
yeah, proof of stake. It used to be proof of work, but they don't actually mention anything about that. The only thing that they mention is the SHA-256, which is a proof of work algorithm. Um, and
Now, why did they mention? See that it said the improvements in cost and speed were benchmarked for a specific relevant operation on SHA-256 hashing. How come they mentioned that when they talked about Ethereum?
it's just a benchmark. So SHA-256 is just a standard hashing algorithm. So they just clocked the speeds of these different machines against a against each other running a SHA-256 like a proof of work. They just want to see which computer is running the fastest. But if there was a way to use SHA-256 to create these zero knowledge proofs, then that would be advantageous because there is already a massive network of these circuit specific computers that do that. Um,
Yeah, I wonder if these people. I mean, maybe they don't even know about this. Maybe they don't even know about this yet. I really we don't know, right? So, I mean, maybe they think Ethereum is going to solve the problem.
right. And maybe they don't know that BSV announced the Mandela upgrade, and maybe they don't know that it happens to have the exact same technical architecture as the project that they want to produce a proof of concept for. Uh, I'd be surprised, but it is anything's possible. And like
I
I
mean,
said, this doesn't
these are the
change. This doesn't
this
change
is the
anything.
central bank of central banks. So this is the top of the top.
Yeah, but we've already known this. Like they're not gonna. We already know that this was the this was the blueprint. Enchain's been telling us for the last 4 years.
Enchain said that they've been talking to CBDCs since you know,
Yeah,
like it says here.
and
I don't
and
know.
people get mad at Enchain for, saying, "Hey, I don't want a central bank digital currency." Okay, well, that's the use case. That's where the money is. So,
Well, let me.
until
That's probably
until
an
some
interesting
of
topic.
us
Let me
start
ask you
stepping
this:
up.
like, why would the okay, like a lot of people, like Aaron Day, he mentioned that central bank and Roger Ver, they don't want central bank digital currencies and they're bad. They create and I'm kind of with that boat. Like in the Fed, I think we should get rid of central bank digital currencies. So, can you make the case for why it would be different if it was all on chain? Why would it be different if we had a central bank digital currency all on chain using? Why would that be different or better?
I mean, they're still going to abuse their power. Any, power gets abused. It's better because it's transparent at least. But within a rules engine like an overlay, they can basically make whatever rules they want. If, they can freeze your accounts, they can take your shit. And what's great is that you can exit and use the base layer protocol called Bitcoin, which is peer-to-peer electronic cash, and you don't really get censored because the miners are just for-profit machines. If you use a CBDC, okay, then that's your decision because you can use Bitcoin. You can. You just have to be educated on it. So that's really what it's all about. Now, I'm actually in the process of building out uh, a blockchain academy for people to learn about these things because the CBDCs are coming. We can't stop that. It's just the truth. What we can teach them is how it's built and what it's built on and why it's important for them to know the uh, the intricacies of that network because if that network is competing with the CBDCs, then people don't really have to choose the CBDC. They can choose alternative economies, and those economies can be built on the Satoshi. Now, the problem is, of course, that the Satoshi isn't money yet. And the reason for that is it's just not stable. It's too volatile. Even you could argue that the US dollar is volatile as well. But at least it goes in one direction, just straight down. Um, uh, the Satoshi fluctuates all over the place, and until that really gets um, until that's a true commodity where you're getting it for the marginal cost and the electric grid is very stable and all these things are working together, then we don't really have the Satoshi as money, and you're going to end up paying, you know, $17,000 for a pizza or, like, or however much that guy paid for the first Bitcoin pizza. We don't want that. We want stable money. We want stability. And that comes from um, scale, and we don't have that yet. So CBDCs are going to be useful, and it's going to give that sense of security, that sense of stability.
Hmm.
That's okay, but we need people to understand and build so that we can reach the scale where the Satoshi is money, because that's the ultimate goal. Whether Craig Wright or Enchain or Satoshi say that or not, that's the truth. We don't have money in the Satoshi yet. It's too volatile. But our goal is to get it to the relevant scale where we have that stability and we create those economies, those parallel economies that are resilient and thriving. So,
So what else? All right, what else are you working on? You're working on a man. You said an academy. What else can people look forward to from you?
yeah, so check out blockchainacademy.info. We're getting an online course ready for that, so we can start to distribute that to the masses. I'm working with a colleague, um, Elle Liberté. She's great. She teaches the Bitcoin Fast Track course, and then I'm the head of the advanced studies, and I tend to be a little too high level for a lot of people, so I understand that. I steer clear of the fundamentals course and leave it to the professional. Elle is the best in the world at that, and um, she gets it done fast. So that's where that'll be. And then of course I'm always working on the side, uh, in the background on Metawatt and building these parallel economies that I'm talking about. That's the that's the key. That's what it's all about.
So here's the blockchain academy.
Yeah.
Elas, Metawatt, manufacturer, amped. Subscribe to the newsletter. People can see more about it here.
Yeah, so we're still developing the site out a little bit and getting everything ready, but we've done a lot of live courses and gotten great reviews. Like I said, Elle's the master. Um, and and then I'm building, advanced courses on cold storage, and uh, coding and theory, these sorts of things. So, we've got a lot to look forward to, and we're going to be offering, if you're already educated on this and you probably can understand that this is a tough thing to educate on. Um, if maybe you take a look at our course, if you find that it's valuable and you want to use us to help onboard your family and friends, we're going to pay you in Bitcoin for any referral. So that's where we're headed with this.
What happened at the NASDAQ?
Yeah, we so Elle actually set that up for me. I got to announce the grid on the edge report. And, it's taken me a little bit longer to get that dialed in than I hoped, but I've got a lot of good support on that from the EMP task force, and we're going to get it really dialed in so that it's an important document for the future on educating people on the benefits of using Bitcoin within the electric grid. So yeah,
Grid on the edge.
yep, Grid on the Edge is coming out soon, and it will be, a look into the strategic fragility of our electric grid and our economic system and how we can leverage the Bitcoin network to secure that. It's it is, gonna be a lifelong project for me, and I'm thrilled to be a part of this entire community, and I just, appreciate everyone who's supported me
What
up to this point.
and what about Metawatt? Is it Metawatt? MET
M
T
E METAWATT
dot.
info.
Okay, so people can learn more about Metawatt here.
Yeah. I'm about to publish the version 2 of the Metawatt white paper, and that'll be included inside um of the grid on the edge report. I've had to change some things up with the Mandela upgrade. That was announced after my version 1 design plan was set. So, I've had to change some things up, but of course we've got the we've got the blueprint now, and we know how it's gonna look in the future, and now we can start to innovate on it. So, I also run binary distributed technologies, and if you're interested in looking at, building on uh on Bitcoin, and you're interested in learning how these systems work, then you can hit me
Looks like
up.
people can contact you here on this website.
So unfortunately, I can't figure out how to fix that. So I get the messages you guys send, but your email isn't attached for whatever reason. I can't figure out how to fix it. So if you do send me a message there, include your email in the message for me. And then I can actually get back to you. I've had a lot of people. So if you're watching this from an old episode that we did and I never got back to you, it's not because I didn't want to. It's because I don't have your email. So
So write your email in this message then.
yeah, that email box is broken for some reason.
So put your email right here.
Yep. But yeah, I'd love to hear from everyone. And we can start to innovate on this stuff because that's what it's all about. We
What
have to
about
start
Babbage?
using
Have you
it.
talked to that Babbage guys? They're pretty cutting edge.
Yeah, I've got a MOU signed with Ty, and we work together. Um, Ty's the man. I don't know if you've ever done a show with him, but he'd be a great guest. I mean, his level of expertise is um, second to few, if not none.
Really?
Yeah, he's. I mean, he invented overlay engines. He wrote all of the BIPs for it. He was commissioned by the BSVA to get the software up and running, him and his Babbage team. And, you know, he's really the architect of the future.
Yeah, I need a little kind of assistance talking to him. Unfortunately, he's such a high level that I have a hard time understanding what he's saying.
Yeah, I think I'm probably the perfect middle ground. I can get a lot of what he says. A lot of it still goes over my head as well. But I can communicate the the lower level stuff, and I think that's my role in all this because I can't build these overlay networks. There's only a few people in the world that can. Um, but I do know what they're supposed to do, and I know how it's supposed to look in the future. And so if anyone wants to reach out to me and, if they've got a project idea that they're interested in pursuing, or if they just want to know about Bitcoin theory, or if they want to, learn about the fundamentals, I'm trying to cover all the bases here and get the information out to the people.
Nice. All right, dude. I love it, man. So, well, then let's do it again next time. Thanks for the show today. Really exciting, man. All the Bitcoin gossip that we talked about at the beginning in the court case. And so, everybody, be sure to check out Mitch on the website that he mentioned there for Metawatt, and like the video, leave a comment. I'm sure you'll probably be able to read some of the comments as well, Mitch, in the video. People
Yeah.
write if they can't
Yeah, I'll check it
find
out.
you. So, um, yeah, be sure to follow all the gossip, man, all the drama that's about to go down in this thing. And it is, back to the court case for a moment. It's not that it matters so much. It's actually, I think the whole purpose that Craig talked about was he actually was, he talked about actually killing Satoshi, he wanted Satoshi to go away. But now we're talking about Craig going into custody. So
Right.
well, we know it may not be likely. It's Copa's intent. They want him in custody.
Mm.
And, that's just not cool. That's not cool. So,
Yep. Agreed.
if we can help stop that with that petition potentially and disqualify the court, if anything else, so they don't take him into custody, then hey, everybody sign that petition, change.org. I'll put it in the description below. Because I don't know. I mean, it could over to do the whole ruling. I mean, I guess in a hopium sense. I mean, it could make them do the whole trial again. But if anything, it'll at least give Craig potentially a reason not to show up in person, you know?
Hmm.
I mean, that's the way I'm seeing it. Is like, hey, at least he's like, dude, why? That court's lost jurisdiction. Once there's a judicial challenge, then that Meller, he doesn't have jurisdiction. It actually gets assigned over to another judge, and they've got to decide on the disqualification. Therefore, the 18th is like, oh, that's moot.
Mm.
Yeah. So it's do that. I mean, I hate to see Craig go into custody. That's the
Yeah.
last thing. He can't do work while he's in chains.
Right.
I mean, come on. It's just bullshit. So, yeah. So, anyways, yeah. So sign the petition and yeah, love Craig or not, he's not a harm to society. There's no reason to have him in custody.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Yeah.
come on. Yeah, dude. I mean, that's the thing. So, yeah, dude. So, all right, man. I appreciate you coming, Mitch. Let's do it again sometime, okay?
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah.
And we'll be in contact. Thanks everyone for listening.
Yeah, right on. Hit the subscribe, like, share the video, y'all. We'll see you at the top.